Well, hello, folks. This is Jamil Sir for Gunstock Reviews. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona at the law offices of Tim Forgy with Tim. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. You?
Doing great, man.
Great. Good to see you.
It's a new year, and today we have, I don't know, let's talk about the 300-pound gorilla on top of the elephant in the room, which is the Alec Baldwin case, which is one of those things that I would say, what the hell just happened here?
Right.
Because at the moment, you know, I heard people on the internet calling it an accident. For me, there's no such thing as an accidental shooting. To me,
Well, I think there are, but they're very, very rare, and I don't think this was one.
no, I think there was negligence all the way through. And what the heck do I know? I mean, yeah, he broke all 4 rules of firearm safety.
Clearly.
Okay, which is all guns are always loaded. Number 2 is
Never point your muzzle at anything you're not willing to destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. And number 4 is be mindful of your target and
Be certain of your target. Yeah.
and what's beyond it.
Correct.
Because there's always, you know, that behind every bad guy, there's always a busload of nuns and
Exactly
orphans
right.
driving by that is going to make your life really hard. So before you give me your point of view on this thing, your legal point of view, I'm going to give you my point of view as an industry person. Okay? Dave back there has had experiences doing America's Most Wanted, because he was cameraman on that show. And me, as you know, but some people don't know, I was a photographer. I'm still a photographer.
Still are, yeah. So phenomenal one.
And I have been photographing professional shooters for over 25 years. And we do a lot of post, other than the matches that are action, we are always safe there. Okay, when I go into a course of fire, USPSA or IDPA, I ask the range officers, I'm at their disposal, you tell me where I can stand. Always listen to them. Number 2, I ask the shooters, am I bothering you here if I stand here? Some of them would say no. Angus Hobdell will look at me and say, you're crazy, dude. You know, but then he goes, promise you, I won't shoot you. You know, by mistake, on purpose maybe, but not by mistake. And I've done a lot of post shooting. For example, I photographed Jerry Michalek, his wife Kay, and his daughter Lena, Julie Golub, Doc Koenig, you name it. All those top shooters we have done, and then give you 2 examples. We did the Barricades at Bianchi Cup, 2012, and they had a protocol. I mean, I didn't come up with protocol, but this lady who ran the stage, the barricade stage, she was adamant. You would walk in through the outside of the barricades. She had a table set up. You would hand her your firearm, your handgun. She would inspect it, check it, lock it safe, whether it was a revolver cylinder open or a pistol with a slight lock back. On the table, you couldn't touch it until you were going to the set to get your picture taken. After that, you were free to leave without anything else going on. And another situation is like Jerry Michalek. Jerry, of course, you know this, some shooters might not know, he's the fastest revolver shooter in the world. He had a protocol that I started with him, that I would do photographs of Jerry pretty much aiming his gun almost at me, not at me and my camera, but to the side. I would say, Jerry, aim your pistol here. And he would aim his revolver there. But in a revolver, you want to show that there's something in the cylinder. It looks kind of silly with empty cylinders. So I had Corbon, Peter Pye, the former owner of Corbon, made me a couple of boxes of dummies. They were basically, he never went to the extent of drilling holes on the sides of the case, but it's an empty piece of brass with a bullet on it, seated correctly and crimped and everything. No powder, no primer. One of these days I'll drill holes to the side. I'll go to Marty's and have them drill holes on all of them just to add that level of security, safety. But yeah, and I would Jerry would hand me his revolver. I would open the cylinder. I would inspect the dummies. Now Jerry has his own dummies. Everywhere he goes on matches, he has his own dummies just in case somebody wants pictures, which is a great idea. He put the moon clip on his revolver, handed back to him, cylinder open, and we would do that with pistols. Say his wife Kay and his daughter Lena would come over, hand me their pistols, lock them open, look at the magazine. Magazine is empty. Slide back, hand it back to him with the empty magazine, with the empty pistol, and she would, bring the slide forward. They never, unless I asked them, never, ever, ever put their finger on the trigger, okay, for post pictures.
Uh-huh.
And there's pictures, of course, people goofing off, making faces and whatever. Julie Golub does that all the time. She poses like so, and Lena has always got that bright, beautiful smile of hers, and does it. Sometimes she's, doing the grumpy look and all that. So we have a protocol of how to handle real firearms in photography. Now, let's talk about you. What do you think about this situation?
Well, what you said was that you have safety protocols. When you do your professional job where you're photographing people that are shooting, you do it in a very conscious, very safety-oriented manner that follows all 4 of the firearm safety rules. I applaud that, obviously. I've been, not only have I been a CCW instructor for almost 30 years, I've been a shooter for almost 55 years. I've been around guns my entire life, and safety protocols are anything and everything, right? You've got to have safety protocols. With regard to this Alec Baldwin situation, I prefer that we stay away from politics. You're not doing there. I'm not going there. Lots of memes that we both saw following that shooting event. Let's not lose track of one thing. A beautiful, wonderful woman's life ended. She has a little boy. She has a husband. It's just a horrible, horrible tragedy. The thing that I don't understand is how a lot of people seem to think that Mr. Baldwin is blameless, and I just don't see how that's possibly the case. I believe that he's filled with remorse. I have no doubt that he'll never ever stop reviewing that incident in his mind. I'm sure every day he probably sees that incident over in his mind a dozen times, and I would imagine that'll continue till the day he dies. I'm sure he's full of remorse, but that doesn't matter legally. We just had a conviction of a Minneapolis police officer who was involved in a very high-profile shooting where she confused her taser with her firearm. She drew her firearm in the heat of the moment, chasing a fleeing felon, and she screamed on camera, "Taser, taser, taser," and then shot him with her handgun. Clearly made a horrible, horrible, life-altering mistake based upon her failure to follow safety protocols, right? And I saw the video of her sobbing on the stand. Clearly, this woman is filled with remorse. Clearly, she would do anything to go back and turn the hands of time backwards, but she's not able to do that. Despite the fact that she's remorseful, despite the fact that her life was altered horribly by this, she was still convicted. And I think that the thing that the supporters of Mr. Baldwin don't seem to remember is that he should be accountable for what he did if it violated the law. I won't speak for a knowledge of New Mexico law, but in Arizona, what he did appears to me to be completely illegal. If you negligently cause the death of another human being in the state of Arizona, that's known as negligent homicide. That's a class 4 felony, presumptive prison term, about 5 years in prison. I just don't see how anybody could claim that he didn't break all 4 safety rules and that he's responsible for that. Were there other people that were also responsible? Almost undoubtedly. I don't think that he loaded that gun, but I just think that just because somebody hands you a gun and says it's unloaded, that gives you carte blanche to do whatever you want with that gun, no matter how dangerous, and then not have any consequences, is ludicrous. So I believe that he absolutely should be held accountable for what he did, despite the fact that it was a tragedy, despite the fact that I'm sure he is filled with remorse. That doesn't give him a pass. And I'm just afraid that the politics of this situation might end up giving him a pass. Whereas the police officer in Minnesota didn't get such a pass. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. She didn't have 5 million followers on Instagram. And I just wish our society wasn't set up like this. Justice should be for all.
Yeah, I agree. The way, you weren't there, I wasn't there.
Correct.
So I don't know what happened and how things happened. There's new reports going every day, people throwing each other under the bus, trying to figure out, well, it wasn't me, it was her. She handed me the gun. Well, she didn't hand you the gun. The assistant director handed you the gun.
And my point is the assistant director and or the armorer may also be responsible. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they don't share responsibility, but the person that aims the gun at something that it shouldn't have been aimed at and pulls the trigger when they didn't mean to fire of a gun that they assumed was empty when it wasn't, I don't need to go any further. You violated all the safety rules right there.
And the way I look at it is the gun was unattended, I guess, for a amount of time. She claims she put dummies in it. She wasn't at the set at the moment it happened because I guess he wasn't supposed to be firing the gun or using the gun. So how did that happen? We don't know because until the court, the investigation.
But that's the moral of the story, is that whenever you're talking about, dissecting firearms incidents after the fact, you never know. And that's the whole reason we have these rules. Mm-hmm. Why do you treat every gun as though it's unloaded or as though it's loaded, even when you're sure it's unloaded? Because you never No. Things happen. And here, something by someone happened. But at the end of the road, somebody pointed that gun at a human being and fired it.
Yeah.
And whatever preceded that, I don't know, and we may never know. But if the proper firearms protocol and safety procedures had been followed by Mr. Baldwin, this would not have happened. Period.
And we're talking about even in matches. A friend of mine had this happen. He was in the unload and show clear part of in an IDPA match. He picked up, before unload or show clear, he picked up his dropped empty mag out of the ground. He didn't show unload or show clear, but his magazine was still in the gun. When he said hammer down, it went bang.
Yep.
Because he never took the magazine out. The putting the empty magazine away confused him on the magazine that was still in the gun.
You and I each have got dozens of anecdotes like this where things like that have happened. But at the end of the day, the point is things happen. And so we have protocols in place so that no matter what happens, if those protocols are followed, there won't be a tragedy.
Well, for example,
if the protocol isn't followed,
that's when
there could be a tragedy.
That's when things happen. That's why when we do matches, when you do unload and show clear, you do it in a safe direction.
That's right.
Just in case something happens.
That's correct.
And that's why in the safety areas, there's no ammo in the safety areas.
You still follow Rule 2.
Yeah, you always keep your firearms, you're safe about them. And this is a great idea. Thanks for giving me your point of view as a lawyer, and I'm giving you my point of view as an industry person dealing with this. And Dave has stories from when he did his thing.
At the end of the day, I guess, to me, one of the most tragic things about it is that, and again, not to get political, I'm not trying to be political, but Mr. Baldwin has made no secret of his disdain for the firearms community and for the NRA in particular. And the ironic fact is that the NRA, love them or hate them, is responsible for almost all safety protocol followed by every police department, every gun range, every competitive shooter, not only in the U.S., but in the world. And his complete disdain for them proved to be his downfall. I find that a horrible, horrible, sad irony. Well, if he had just embraced the message, if not the messenger, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Well, and another thing is I hate to say this, it's not that I love the man, but I don't hate him.
Of course not. Never met him. I had no reason to hate him.
I have no reason to hate him, but a year or two ago, there was a shooting by a police officer, and what he said is, on a tweet, public for everybody, how must it feel to, negligently end someone's life? Well, now you know.
He does. Yeah.
Now he knows.
And if I was his attorney, by the way, I don't know what I'd do with all of his postings on social media. I would go insane. I would drive over to his house right now and break his fingers. Unbelievably bad for his case. Yes.
And that interview that he gave, in which he said, I just pulled the hammer back and the gun went off. You and I know that when you pull the hammer back on a working, single action army type, single action gun, the hammer is not going to go back. It has four.
Again, let's talk semantics for a moment. So let's assume that, via Thel Reed, his daughter was the armorer on the show. Let's say somebody had modified that single action gun so that it was thumb fired. So the hammer is essentially wired back or disconnected. So when you pull the hammer back and let the hammer go, the gun fires. In that case, the hammer has become the trigger. You don't put your finger on the trigger until you're on target and ready to fire. So I don't care if the gun was malfunctioning. By him thumbing the hammer back like that, he was violating protocol once again.
And that is a great point of view here. That
let's assume the gun wasn't functioning correctly. It still does not obviate the fact that he violated four different safety tenets before that gun could go bang. And
being a producer on the production on the movie, he has final responsibility that everything that is brought to that set is safe.
Okay. Well, and financially, that's going to be important. The civil suits that are just starting in this case are going to be devastating. But again, I'm more concerned that justice be served with regard to our criminal justice system, and I just don't understand how he wouldn't be indicted for.
Yeah,
I believe negligent homicide. I wouldn't raise it to the level of recklessness, but I think it's clearly negligent homicide.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thanks for your point of view, Tim, and I hope our viewers appreciate this. And like always, guys, if you like this kind of content, like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody about this video so we can continue to bring you this level of content in the future. So like always, guys, please remain healthy, stay safe, and definitely have fun at the range.
Thank you for watching Gunstock Reviews. Please visit our website at www.gunstockreviews.com for more exclusive content. please visit our patron page at www.patreon.com/gunstockreviews. Your contributions would be greatly appreciated and help us grow our selections and frequency of videos.